Hi, hello, it's me, Unkempt Snugglepepper, back for another episode of Art Critiques. If you find this helpful, go ahead and leave me a comment down below. In the doobly-doo, you will find a link to buy me a coffee, as well as a form if you would like to submit your own artwork for me to critique. With that being said, let's get into it. So this person said they were using the Loomis method in order to learn how to draw the head, and I learned to draw through Andrew Loomis's Figure Study for All It's Worth. I think it was an excellent book. I learned a lot about figure study, about breaking down the form into simpler things. And with this one, I think the person knows a lot about art, but they don't necessarily know the application, or they don't necessarily know the techniques. My first note would be on the I would use a little bit bigger. Even though you're doing sketches, I would start looking into bigger sketchbooks. That's going to give you more space and you can add more detail. I would also look into using art pencils and getting darker with a 4B or 6B. I can tell that you know certain things, like the bottom of the nose gets a shadow. There should be a shadow shape right here. And that his nostril is going to be darker. Right, so we have a nostril. We'll see a little bit of the nostril there. We know that we have a light source. It's coming from here. But I think getting into the darker and being able to smudge is going to help you a lot. Right now you have a lot of pencil lines that I think you can blend out. So this plane of the face here, I would blend out more. I know this is just a sketch. I think even when working with smaller sketches, it is helpful to take the time to do a little bit of blending. A lot of people will use their fingers, which is not the best method. Yes, you're going to smudge the graphite. You're also going to get it all over your hands, and you're going to get your oil in the paper, so it's harder to put more graphite down. I recommend picking up a set of tortillons. They're pretty easy to find. They're the blending stumps. Or you can, if you have an old cotton t-shirt, you can also cut that up and use that in order to make a good blender. Because yeah, you have these core shadows that you're notating, but I think you can really bring them to the next level of darkness by using art pencils and going darker. It's easier in digital art and painting because I can change my brush size and I can cover large portions. I don't have to worry about the oils in my hands. I can tell you're starting to understand the planes of the face. However, I think by using darker marks, you can better explain those planes. So as you apply darker values, you're going to have a larger range of value. Value defines form. So I also recommend that as you're starting to get into darker pencils, to make a little graph, a little chart for you. To document your value ranges. So you'll make a little box, and on one end of the box you're going to put the darkest dark. This is the absolute darkest your pencils will go. And if you're using a 6 or an 8B, that's going to be pretty black, pretty dark. And then on the other side, you're going to have the white of the paper. And then progressively move towards gray. And I would start with saying, okay, I have 5 values. What does a 5 look like? What does a 4 look like? What does a 3 look like? So if I go back and look at this, I have value 1, which is white, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You can also break it down into 10. Using a value scale allows you to see different levels of value without having to look at the value next to them. There are a lot of optical illusions where there's two grays and they're the same gray, but one looks darker than the other because of the values around it. So putting down a value scale helps us as artists see this is how dark I can go, this is how light I can go. And when I'm looking specifically at a value, like the darkest shadow of his eye, I know that if he has deep set eyes, that this shadow shape is going to be some of the darkest on the shape. I know that the pupil's going to be dark. I know that the eyelash line is going to be dark. And then this is going to be around a 2 or a 1. Now that we've talked about the technical aspect and all of that good stuff, let's talk a little bit about proportions and some more accuracy within the face. I think you did good in this, that you're showing that the eye is still a sphere, the eyelid wraps around, the brow bone comes out, and at this far of a 3/4, we're going to see that. However, as the brow comes back up, this dip isn't quite that big. This dip is actually going to be the forehead and a little straighter. With the Loomis method, I'm pretty sure he divides the face into the nose to the bridge, and then you should have a third coming down here, so there's a little bit more room for his chin. And then the next third is going to be his hairline, and that is just the hairline. That's not the apex or the top of the head. That's going to come up a little bit more. Right, we have a full circle in there. Then the ear, you're starting to define the ear. I think getting those darker values where they're supposed to be is going to help you define the shape of the ear. Value is what defines a form. It is light to dark, it is the midtones, and with value, we're able to eliminate lines and instead use different values to explain a three-dimensional object. So I would make sure we're getting the ear a little bit further forward. Yeah, the ear should hit about there. On the eyes, so with the eyes, you went straight across. And it gives this look of tired dissatisfaction to just go straight like this. And I see this a lot in like anime eyes, usually when they're describing a character that's tired all the time. So the eye is still a sphere, and usually the upper eyelid curves up more than the lower eyelid. And then we have the iris and the pupil and the fold of the lid. So for the lid to be this low, it's still going to have a curve, but there's also going to be room for the sphere that is the actual eyeball. So he'll look more like that. And then the lower lash line doesn't usually fold down that far. That's where you're going to have, when people say they have circles under their eyes or bags under their eyes, that's where that is going to go. So if you're going for a sketch, as in you're just wanting to get some lines in, I would better define some of the features like the nose and the lip line. There are a few places when you get darker, there's a few places that are going to be the darkest on the face. One is the inside of the eye socket, because that's where our eyes are further back in our head in order to be protected by the brow bone and by the eyelid. We also have the protrusion of the nose and the plane with that. So that usually casts a shadow. If the light is coming more from over here, then this is all going to be in shadow. And we're probably going to get that cool little Rembrandt triangle of highlight where all of this is going to be shadow. And that's if the light is coming more from his side than above him and to the side. I think the Loomis method is great because you're starting to think about where features are, how features are compared to each other, and you're breaking it down into very basic geometric shapes. I would continue to practice the Loomis method, but also know there are other methods out there. I recently started looking at the Riley method, and it's a different way to break down the shapes and the planes in the face. Don't think that just because you are using the Loomis method now that it's the only method you can use. You can certainly mix methods up, but I would practice the Loomis method in order to understand it before adding another method or idea. I think this is a really great start. I really do. I think there are a few things that I would fix, and that's within the technique and double checking to make sure proportions are accurate. Otherwise, keep drawing, keep practicing, keep sketching. If you found this video helpful, let me know by giving me a like or a comment. The link to buy me a coffee or to submit your art is down in the doobly-doo. And have a great day.